So I became a real estate agent in 2019, and I am currently in the top 5% of realtors nationally for sales volume. This is how I became a top real estate agent in 2024. Welcome back to Freedom Agents. My name is Marc Brenner, and this channel is all about helping you sell more real estate. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of agents that sell a lot more real estate than me, especially teams. But selling over $15 million in gross volume each year does technically put me in the top 5% nationally for realtors. And the beautiful thing about sales and real estate in particular is that it's more science than art, meaning there's no mystery as to why people are successful. So even though there is a huge failure rate in this industry and a lot of agents quit every year, I've always said to agents thinking about getting in this industry, it's actually a very predictable income stream. Even though the barrier to entry in real estate sales is very low and the attrition rate very high, I've always said that this is a career guaranteed to make you a lot of money if you do the right tasks over a long enough period of time. We literally have years and years of documented success among solo agents and teams. Different parts of the country, different personality types, different ways that people run their teams and do business, but incredible consistency about the most important tasks day to day that all successful realtors and teams do no matter what part of the country they're in. And of course, I talk about these strategies and tactics in every video I make. It's all focused around lead generation, mastering a skill, lead generating consistently over a long enough period of time, but sometimes it can really help to hear a story. Stories allow us to put ourselves in other people's shoes and really envision us doing what they do. When we see really successful people on YouTube or TV or wherever, their success can feel out of touch because we don't know anything about how they got where they are. So I thought it would be helpful just to share with you my journey starting in real estate to where I am now and all the mistakes and some successes I made along the way. And you'll see I made all the common mistakes I warn you guys against taking, and that cost me a lot of money and time. And then you'll see as I started to figure out some of the right actions and take them and execute on them for consistently over a long enough period of time, they started to bear fruit. So this is really a story exemplifying all the concepts and approaches that I talk about in all my other videos. So let's get into my story. So after getting laid off at my corporate gig in 2018, I got licensed as a real estate agent at the end of 2018 and started selling full-time right at the beginning of 2019. Now, all of the advice about, vetting brokers, going to multiple brokers, doing a pros and con list, really thinking about what you want to get out of a brokerage relationship, I did none of that. I did absolutely none of it. I had a buddy at Keller Williams and I said, I want to join your brokerage and your team, even though he wasn't really a team leader at the time. So there you go. I'm a new agent at Keller Williams in the beginning of 2019. I am taking the job very seriously. I'm licensed. I'm showing up early in the office. And if you have worked with Keller Williams, a lot of times they're the bigger brokerages in an area. So big offices, lots of agents. But I had a very classic experience going in early and it was empty, right? Now, one of the things you learn in this industry almost right away is that the biggest selling agents in your office are almost never in the office. They're out at appointments. They're out taking action, going to appointments, talking with buyers, sellers, maybe making content. And when they're not out and about, they're holed up in their office and they're on their phone. So like I said, I joined a team, but my team leader didn't have any plan for me. I added myself to his team, really. So I was there on my own with an empty office in a cubicle in the one part of the office where they don't, charge you to put your stuff down. And I was just staring at my computer and I was like, what do I do now? How in the world do I get someone who says, hey, Mark, I want to use you as my realtor? And I did all the classic things I tell you guys not to do, right? I fiddled around in my email. You go through all the onboarding stuff with your brokerage and it's exciting. You feel like you really get that feeling of a new career, a new company, a new opportunity. Unfortunately, it does lull you into the employee mindset where you think Keller Williams or whatever your brokerage is going to hold your hand and take you through everything. So a lot of that time, those first few weeks, probably even first few months, was just spent going through emails, fiddling around in the MLS, playing around with comps, looking at some of the contracts. Although, reading a contract, before you engage with it in a deal is not always super beneficial. I would play around with my email signature and my logo and try to get my website right, and try to think about some valuable things like who is the person that I want to work with and what is value going to look like to those people. I would go to trainings, of course. I would go to many trainings as there were, and those were beneficial and I learned, but that was also time that I was not reaching out to people, so keep that in mind. And I tried a bunch of stuff. I hosted open houses that were posted up in my brokerage. I signed up, with RedX and started making circle prospecting calls. I was practicing scripts and going all in with Kevin Ward. Really shiny object syndrome, which I talked about in my last video, just bouncing around like a bunny to all these different, lead generation techniques, all these different approaches, all these different initiatives and big ideas that I had. And of course, none of it was leading to my phone ringing or to signing any contracts, representing any buyers or sellers, and making any money. So I would say that whole first year, I absolutely did not consistently lead generate, okay? I did some lead generation. I probably did more lead generation than the average rookie agent does, but I was not consistent or disciplined or focused or effective with what type of lead generation I was doing. And the biggest thing I look back on is that I was not developing skills, right? This is why I'm saying pick one or two things and go all in on them, because your ability compounds, your skill grows, and these are skills you can take with you. If I had started YouTube right away, by now I would be a lot closer to Mr. Beast than I am, which is pretty far away, which is okay. But that was one of my mistakes, was not developing specific skills around lead generation. So that first year, I closed 9 deals, and I was on a team split, and some of these were referrals and some of them were, co-agent deals. So I think I walked away that year with just over $50,000 in commissions, which honestly was a huge win for me because I could almost completely replace my old income with this new career that I absolutely loved, with no boss and no rules and no restrictions and no stress about getting laid off or fired. Now, at the end of my first year going into my second year, I started to develop a little bit of consistency around one type of lead generation. It was not content. I had not, discovered YouTube yet. It was actually open houses, which I talk about a lot on this channel. Open houses are a great way to lead generate. They're not the most leveraged way, meaning you're not generating leads if you're not physically there. However, it's a great way to get in front of potential buyers who are possibly ready to put offers in right away and possibly are not represented. Now, I made all the classic mistakes with open houses as well. I would just host whatever open houses were available on the bulletin in my brokerage. I would hop around to the north side, south side, east side, neighborhoods that I didn't know at all or knew very little. But I did do it every week, and I did develop the skills of rapport and speaking with people on the fly, and also of follow-up. I developed a routine of getting the contact information for everyone that came in. I developed a routine of what I wanted to say and how I wanted to develop conversations if they arose. And I developed a routine for how I was going to follow up, the emails and calls and gifts that I was going to send in hopes of making them a client. And although my open house strategy would be completely different now, and if you want to know that strategy, you can watch the full-length video. I'll post a link to it here. Although it was not strategic and it was not as effective as it could have been, it was some kind of consistent lead generation, so I was starting to close deals a little bit more consistently. However, heading into the spring of 2020, with COVID coming in, everything was on lockdown. I had to step away from the open houses. In Atlanta, Georgia, the lockdown was not as bad as some other parts of the country, but open houses was no longer something I could do more and more and more of. There were less of them and less people coming out, and when you did host them, you had to be very strategic about who could come in when. So I shifted focus to YouTube. And this is when I discovered my current sponsors at eXp Realty, Jesse Dow and Jackson Wilkie, who are probably the biggest YouTube realtors in the world. And I saw what they were doing in terms of making content about their neighborhoods to provide people value who were relocating there. And it just clicked. It just made sense. It just made sense in my mind. Of course, if I'm moving to a new area that I don't know with my family, I'm going to search Google terms, and Google's gonna bring me to YouTube, and I'm gonna be watching videos about what it's like to live in that certain area. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but sometimes something just makes sense to you. You know, you can kind of see the proof of concept in the concept itself. You don't really need, you know, proof that it's going to work. And these guys were selling a lot of real estate and starting multiple channels. So I went all in early 2020, and I just started cranking out content. And those early videos are not still, you know, public on my channel, but if you could see them, you would probably feel really encouraged, because I'm talking about literally speaking selfie style into my cell phone with no mic, no lighting, no script, right? And so it was very bare bones. You know, it wasn't providing a ton of value. There was no production value, but I was taking action. Okay, I was posting. I had my YouTube channel created. I had the first video posted. Now, that's already separating yourself from a lot of people who just don't take action. They sit and think about stuff, right? So that was good. But then the next piece was the consistency, because the reality is I was getting 14 views, 80 views, maybe 100 views on those first videos. I had 4 subscribers, then I had 18, and you know, eventually I had 38. It felt like getting to 100 is the hardest on YouTube. Once you get to 100, to me, it's all gravy from there. So I just point that out because in my last video, one of the syndromes I talked about was it didn't work syndrome, where agents will try a new lead generation technique once, maybe twice, if they're really good 3 times. But if it doesn't bear fruit, they're gonna quit and, you know, go back to whatever they were doing. And I did think about doing that, but not really, because honestly, I knew the proof of concept was just there for me. So I said, I'm making these videos the whole year if I had to. And that's what I did, you know, very consistently, at least 1 video posted every single week. In the beginning there, it was probably more like 2 videos a week, no matter what, rain or shine. And wouldn't you know it, about 6 months in, I got my first lead. Now, did I close that first lead? No. But then I got another lead. And then about 8 months in, 9 months in, I'm starting to get consistent reach outs. I'm starting to get my Calendly booked. I'm starting to get emails asking questions. And look, some of them are BS. Some of them are renters. Some of them are going to buy 2 years from now. But think about what's really happening. My phone is ringing. My email box is chirping. I'm getting appointments booked in my calendar. This is the proof of concept that this stuff is working. And that's how you're going to know anything that you're doing is working. If it's cold calling, your calendar is going to have booked appointments. If it's open houses, again, at some point your calendar is going to have booked appointment with clients that you met from open houses. So, but the point being there, again, guys, if you're watching this video and you want to be successful and you want to make money and you don't want to do a corporate job where you have a boss, the crux of the issue, the only thing you have to figure out, the only pain you have to go through is, what lead generation strategy am I going to do? How long am I going to do it? And can I really become a student of the game, right? There's only so many ways to generate leads. Write them down. You have a certain personality type and you have certain time available. It doesn't have to be content. I do think content is best for reasons I've explained over and over again, but you might just have a great sphere of influence and you can reach out to those people consistently and generate referral-based business. You might want to be a cold caller and cold call FSBOs and expires. You might want to do open houses. You might want to do door knocking, right? It doesn't matter which one it is. But if you really want to break through and have your own business, be your own boss, have no limit to your income, the barrier to entry, the price for admission, is developing some skills. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to break it to you and how else you can get around it. You know, the skills that I developed that allow me to become a top producing realtor is creating content that's valuable for people who want to work with me, right? Not that hard. Okay, well, I shouldn't say that. It is hard. It's all very, very hard, actually. I completely take that back. But you just gotta dive in, and you gotta be okay failing. You gotta be okay looking silly and feeling silly. You gotta be okay getting called out or getting feedback or getting disappointed and just screwing up and making mistakes. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The person who wins is never the most intelligent. It's the person who takes the most action for long enough time consistently enough, okay? So you just gotta dive in and start doing it. Anyway, long story short, at the end of 2020, I closed 19 transactions, and a lot of those were backloaded at the second half of the year as the YouTube thing really started to take off. But for the first time in my career, I had cracked 6 figures, right? And I did it on my own without a pay raise or a salary, and I could have made more, and I did make more the next year, which is the beautiful thing about real estate sales. So 2021 was when things really took off for me as the videos started to, grow in interest, grow in subscribers, grow in views. I had more and more reach outs. You'll remember that the market was extremely hot. We had really low interest rates, so there were a lot of buyers in the market. And I ended up closing 33 deals in 2021, which was my best year to date. And about 90% of that was from social media. I did not have TikTok at the time, so it was pretty much all from YouTube and from my sphere of influence. So let's stop and think about this for a second, right? Because that's why I made this video. What made Marc successful in 2021, right? He didn't sell much of anything in he didn't sell anything in 2018. He started to sell a few things in 2019. What is the difference? I could have kept doing what I was doing and, maybe had to quit or just maybe had a job where I made $40,000 a year. What happened? Well, I developed the skill of content creation and I consistently executed and put out content. I consistently lead generated every day. So that was the difference. And any story that you hear of a successful realtor, whether it's Sirhan or Kevin Ward or whoever your favorite realtor is, there's a lot of great ones out there. If you listen to their story, it's going to be different in the details and the environment and the challenges and the struggles and the successes, but I guarantee the common thread is that success really started to compound when there was intentional, consistent lead generation and when that lead generation skill improved over time. Now it's 2024 and nothing has really changed. I can tell you for sure, as my lead generation goes, so goes my business. And I'm not really branching out to other methods. I have started to get into Facebook ads, and the skill I'm trying to learn there is conversion, and it's not an easy one to learn. But more than anything else, I'm doubling down on what's worked for me, on high quality content. I've hired a videographer and a second editor. I'm buying nicer equipment and I'm putting way more time and effort into all the content I create. So this doesn't really end. You continue to refine your skills, sharpen your tools, and before you ever branch out for a new initiative, you always want to double down on what's worked for you so far. So I know that was a brief story. I don't want to, bore you with a bunch of details. That was the core of what I wanted to convey to you in terms of my story. There were a lot of failures along the way, a lot of embarrassing mistakes. I mean, I could talk about those all day, but what I wanted you to really get a sense for was starting at point A, not knowing what I'm doing, spending the majority of my time on tasks that are not producing income. 2, generating a consistent high income that allows me to live the lifestyle I want, all while being my own boss. And the bridge between those two is simply developing the skills of a certain type of lead generation and executing consistently over a long enough time period. Now, I want to recap this for you a little bit. Just to end the video, I want to share, I became successful when, what was that bridge? I just mentioned one, but just to phrase this in another way, and just to recap the video, overall, I became successful when I consistently put myself out there. In my case, it was videos. For you, it could just be picking up the phone and calling your friends and family. But you cannot be an invisible agent, which is another syndrome I mentioned in my last video. If you're in sales and you want to be successful, you want to be a successful agent, you've got to put yourself out there. Number 2 was I focused on providing value. Now, this always eluded me when I would hear bigger agents talk about it. Okay, I get I need to provide value, but what the hell is value? Well, the trick to understanding value is understanding the audience you're trying to reach. My audience is people relocating to my state from other parts of the country. So value for them looks like explanations of what neighborhoods are like so that they can decide where to focus on. If you wanted to help luxury clients, your value would have to be related to what a luxury client is looking for. Discretion, professionalism, high net worth contacts, exceptional marketing, whatever it is. Every audience, every avatar that you're trying to go out for has certain things that look like value to them. So your challenge is to figure out what that is. Number 3, I started producing when I started consistently following up. You're almost never going to sign a contract with a lead on the first contact. I mean, you're never going to do it. So what does that mean? It means there's a skill you have to learn, and that skill is called follow-up and conversion, right? And that requires organization and planning and good note-taking. But again, look at these like skills so that you're more motivated to stay consistent with it, because if you have the skill of lead follow-up and conversion, you can take that many places with you in life, no matter what you do. Number 4, I leaned into friend groups, and I do want to point this out because I do get consistent business from my sphere of influence. And I'm a major introvert with a small sphere in a place that I did not grow up in. If you are an extroverted, outgoing person, you love talking with people, you have a large friend group, and especially if you grew up in the location that you're trying to work, you have a major leg up, you have a major advantage. You need to leverage this and lean into it. If you don't have that, you need to develop a hobby, you need to develop friend groups, okay? This is where your first pieces of business are most likely to come from. So, you can mold this career to your life, which is fantastic, right? Whatever way you like to work out, make sure it's in a group setting so you can meet other people. Or if it's a hobby, join a book club. This is a great excuse to, if you like books, join a book club, because you're not only going to be, interacting with other people, it's healthy, to have that communal activity, you like reading, but also you're in a social circle now, and these people will inevitably find out that you're an agent, and I guarantee you're gonna close deals with them. It could be CrossFit, it could be a religious group, it could be softball. Whatever it is, you really don't have an excuse to have zero hobbies. And lastly, I developed some skills. I've mentioned this, multiple times. I've developed a lot of skills over the last 6 years working in real estate. Probably the most important one is creating content, creating high quality content that people want to see, right? That's a skill that I can take to any industry, any future business or endeavor. I can adapt it, and it might not be perfect at first, but I'm definitely not starting at zero. Another skill was writing a great offer, right? When I talked about 2021 and how competitive the market was, I had to develop the skill of writing a winning offer to get my buyer clients under contract, right? That is a real skill. And now I have that skill where my buyer clients are way more likely to get under contract because I know what goes into a winning offer. And now I'm trying to develop the skill of converting Facebook leads, right? It's very easy to get people to reach out to you through Facebook and do ads. It's not easy to follow up, provide value, and get these people to sign a contract with you. So this is a skill that I'm currently working on. I still have a lot of gaps, and I'm still working on skills like these. So that is my story about how I became a top producing realtor in 2024, how I started from nothing with no skills and no business to being in the top 5% nationally for production and sales as a realtor. So you can absolutely do it. It's not a mystery. It's not an art. It is a science. You just have to be really honest with yourself about what you're getting into and if you can hack it. Look, if you can't hack it in sales, it wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. Why would you want to spend all your time, effort, energy, and money into something that you're not going to enjoy, right? It's okay if sales isn't for you. There are other ways to make money. There are other fantastic, fulfilling careers, right? So the best thing you can do is be brutally, brutally honest. Do not lie to yourself or self-deceive because you think you can make 6 figures or more. You could do it. You probably won't, because if you can't do what it takes in sales, it's not going to happen. But even if you did, you probably wouldn't be happy, right? So just know what you're getting into. If you are getting your license, really understand that this is sales and you need to put yourself out there and you need to consistently take action without seeing results for a while. And if you can't do that, if you just dread the thought of it, if you dread the thought of picking up your phone, if you dread the thought of, putting yourself on video, if you dread the thought of hosting an open house, don't do it. Don't do anything that you dread, okay? That's some, and we all do it, but honestly, don't do it. Find something that you're excited about doing every day. But if you like the thrill of being your own boss, of having no time constraints on your schedule, if you like the thrill of having no limit to the amount of money that you can make, and you don't mind putting yourself out there, you don't mind looking a little silly and foolish and getting rejected, and if you don't mind taking action without seeing results for months and months and months, you might really be cut out for this. And if you can just do the simple things that I mentioned, apply them to any arena of lead generation, I guarantee you're going to be successful. I would bet all my money on you because this is a science, right? It's sales. You got to reach out consistently and provide value, and that is your ticket to freedom. So I hope that clarified things for you either way. Hope it provided you value. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.